We're very excited to present this special interview that we have with Kentucky Representative Dan Johnson. Dan Johnson is attempting to end, to criminalize, and abolish abortion in the state of Kentucky. Here's the interview. All right, guys, we're here in Louisville, Kentucky, in a hotel lobby, talking with Kentucky House of Representatives Dan Johnson, and we just finished a live stream outside of the last standing abortion mill in Kentucky.
Yes, yes.
And for the audience right now watching this, tell everybody about who you are, what you do in the state of Kentucky.
Well, I'm Dan Johnson, and I love God. That's what I do. I love God, and I'm a family guy. I have a wife. We have 4 children together, grandkids, and I'm a legislator. And that's the order that goes in, by the way. And I'm working here in Kentucky as a state legislator, the 49th district, and we're seeing a lot of great changes. Of course, this last election for our nation, our presidential election, so many things that happened throughout state legislators all over the country. There was a landslide, and I'm going to call it for righteousness and for conservatism and for good people. And I guess, you know, sometimes I'm a little afraid to get boxed into a title or to a name. But when we hear the word conservatism, you know, a lot of folks have a lot of different ideas and opinions, and some people think, well, that's real straight-laced and boring, you know, or whatever. And so I'm going to try to redefine that a little different. It's righteousness. It's people that want to do what's good for me, but not just for me, because righteousness that plays out where it's good for me is probably not good. So real righteousness is living for the sake of others. And it's a thing where what's good for you and what's good for everyone. And when it comes down to what is good for us is what is God for us. And so when Jesus spoke to the disciples, and one of the disciples said, "Good master," he says, "There's no one good but God." Righteousness and righteous values and what I call conservatism is when we look out for what's right for other people. But it's amazing when you start standing up for what is good or what is God, you always have opposition. I had someone the other day ask me this. It's kind of amazing. They said, how do you stir so much stuff up? I said, well, I keep doing what's right. And when you do what's right, you will always have an adversary, and you will always have adversaries. You know, it's amazing. You know, one time here in the city, just right down the street here, I was living in one of the high-rise apartments, and we had a fire. There was a fire. It was a kitchen fire, and we all were rushed out of this. Oh my gosh! By the way, my mom and dad were here from Louisiana, 700 miles away. We live in a small town, and this is like here they're staying in this high rise. They're a little bit uncomfortable with it, and then we have this fire. So we're all rushed out of this building, you know. And I get out of the building, and I realize there's a lot of people that didn't come out because they didn't hear the fire alarms. So I turned to go back in, and oh my gosh, the security. They're waiting on the fire trucks to get there. The security's trying to stop me. The police are trying to stop me. The doorkeeper's trying to stop me, and I run right by them. And I go up the stairs and I alarm everybody that I can that you know, when I finally got to the floor where the fire was, the door was hot, and you know, I knew what could happen, but I pushed on in. And it ended up, I was able to get people out there that would have otherwise had issues or died from smoke, you know. And I look at that on like everything. You know, when you try to do good, you have people that will try to stop you from doing what will save others' lives. Right. And it's just there. It just goes with the turf when you're trying to do the right thing. But that don't mean you don't get people out of the burning building. That's right. You've got to do what's right. That's right. That's a powerful thing. And one of the things that I love so much about what I've heard you say in just a little bit of time we've had together today, and even overheard you saying to others, is your commitment to the laws of this country. Yes. You talk about the Constitution. Yes. And you talk about legislation that you're putting forward that allows the states to uphold the law of the land and to ultimately honor even their states' rights and their own state sovereignty within the union that we have before us. And so you talk, well, let's just do 2 issues. We'll start with the one, and that's marijuana. You wouldn't do that on this program, would you? You wouldn't ask me that question, would you? Oh, of course I would. We're for liberty. We're for liberty. We're for constitutional
standards where they are consistent with the law of God?
And I appreciate the question. It was humor, but yeah, it is a subject that I have people come to me, you know, immediately when you start standing up for certain things. Folks, you know, wonder what your end game is. You know, is it something that you have an interest in because it's something you're doing or partaking of or whatever? And not the case at all. You know, I always tell people I'm not a smoker, I'm not a stoner. Not that I don't have friends that are and that do, but it's not about that. It's about what is right. And Kentucky was kind of it is kind of the hub, if you will, of hemp and marijuana. It's something that grows wild. It's a natural plant, and during the World War II, it was like one of the biggest crops we had because of hemp, the rope and the fabric and all the different things. And of course, what most people don't realize is with hemp you could build almost this entire building. Yeah. So for instance, like paper or things like that, what we use our mills for, about an acre of hemp can take the place of about 5 acres of hardwood. And the thing is, you can grow that back 2 or 3 times a year. There's just so many things there. Your clothing, that, for instance, a lot of medical beds and things, the sheets where you get bed sores, you don't get bed sores with hemp. There's just so much there. But on the medical side, the hemp oils and things of that nature can provide oils that can help with nerve issues, that can help with brain damage issues, it can help with all kind of aches and joints and bones and things of that nature. It's just a whole list. Digestive system, medical marijuana, and that's kind of taking it a step further. Is something that with little babies or people that have seizures. A little baby that was brought to my office in Frankfurt at the Capitol has 200 seizures a day without hemp. Wow. And they intentionally didn't give this child hemp and oils that day. And when this child went into this seizure to where it was, you know, he's walking around and playing with toys and doing this and doing that, and he goes into a seizure and he's literally bouncing off the floor. I mean, it's horrible. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do this for me. Please do something. And I'm talking a touch of hemp oil, one touch. I mean, like less than an eyedropper. I'm just a little drop. And instantly the seizures stopped, wow. Totally stopped. Alzheimer's, there's some studies on that. Cancer, we've found it to have healing ingredients. A lot of things that we're dealing with right now that we're using pharmaceuticals. So who do you think is fighting this? Right. The pharmaceutical companies. And in my position on about everything, it seems like I've come into a game where we're so far down in the game where there's been so much money and so much payoffs and so much bribery. And I'm walking in and I'm looking at things that as just a guy that's a biker dude. I mean, you know, usually dressed in leathers or somebody who has worked in missions and helping the homeless and doing all these things. And I'm the outside guy. And I walk in and we're in the middle of this game and we're losing so bad. And I look at everything and I go, why? You know, why is this happening? And how did we get started in things like this? And then you realize that the bribes and the big industries and right. Everyone the things that would help you, the things that would help me, the things that would help others are being held from us because someone's been paid off. And so they're trying to stop this very, very diligently. And now all of a sudden, I pushed this last session and with hemp, and trying to get the hemp industry opened up. And now there's been all of these polls that have been run. They thought I was crazy. And now about 80-something% of our state, 82% is one of the figures that are pro for medical marijuana and hemp. I believe that if we could put the power of politics back in the hands of the people, right. To where we have a say, I think there's a lot of things that would open up, and we're dealing with a lot of those issues today. But I'm so far the medical marijuana. It's fixing to be something that there's going to be so many people. Maybe all this can come together, but we have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are out right now taking polls, literally writing down names, phone numbers, addresses, talking to people, and they really feel like this is a move to make this open up, not only in Kentucky, but all over America. So I'm excited about that, and some way or another, I don't know, it's almost like I'm a battering ram. I get thrown in the front, you know, they just, they want me to do this. But anyway, that's kind of the answer.
Well, I think the reason why I want to ask about that is because it goes to a principle, a constitutional
Yes.
principle that
Yes.
you are the law-keeping one. You are
Yes.
the one that's asking for a consistent holding to our constitutional standards in terms of states' rights.
Absolutely.
And federal law essentially bans marijuana.
Yes.
And what we've seen across Colorado, Washington, Arizona, even my own state, is states essentially telling the federal government, go pound sand.
It's amazing. About almost 28 states have somewhere or another passed legislation now for marijuana. But it's the people, again, you're right, you're so right. I think this generation, it's, there's a lot of things that a lot of folks think's wrong with this new generation, but there are some things that are so right with this generation. In a sense, I'm a part of this generation as a newcomer into the political world, and the questions this generation is asking, which I love, is why. And I ask that question all the time to people that don't want to hear that question.
Right.
They want me to accept how it is. They want me to accept what has already happened. They want me to accept what's already been legislated, and they want me to just go, hook onto their train and keep going.
Right.
And this generation is saying, why?
Right.
Why?
That's powerful.
It is, and so we're at that place now where we're having to go back to what our forefathers did, who I believe were some of the most godly statesmen. If there's ever been an ordained group of people that I would compare with the disciples of Christ, would be the founders of our country. They were inspired by God, and the things that were laid out in writing, in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights, and so much of the groundwork of what are the pillars of government, was so right on biblically. It was Bible based.
Well, it's a Christian culture.
The whole thing.
Even if you weren't explicitly Christian, you couldn't get away from the Christian culture that you inherited.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, Bill of Rights, all that stuff is directly from the law of Moses.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and so that's the thing. We have the foundation,
right, and
the foundation is right.
Right.
So we've had bribed, paid off self-interest groups. Congressmen, senators in our national government, presidents that have strayed from what is the foundation principles. That's when we have some of the federal laws that have been passed that are truly unconstitutional.
Right.
We have got to get back to the basics of what, and this generation is the generation.
Right.
This is the generation that's saying why. And you know what we're about to uncover? A lot of things that have been covered up for a long time, that the reasons for it had to do with people's own self-interest, payoff, bribery, things that were cruel, things that were inhumane. I used a word the other day on an interview, and I said unhumane, and someone said that's not a word. Well, it is a word. And the unhumane word is a great word because it means something that's not human. Why would somebody keep something good from you that could save your life?
Right.
Why would somebody keep something from you that would better your life? Why would somebody watch you suffer with human cruelty in some way or another, either by bribe or some sort of a payoff, or possibly even something even far more weird than that, and is that they would almost get off on it or enjoy watching you suffer. And a lot of people do for a lot of reasons, and that's a sad thing, but a lot of the poverty that we have in this country has been promoted by people that obviously love to see America poor. And
right.
So there's a lot of things in that, and of course we're getting to an issue that has to do with everything about what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, the value of human life, human value and dignity. In a sense, my own sovereignty over my own self-governance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And every human, no matter how small, no matter what color, has that ability to self-govern and has that bodily autonomy.
Oh my.
What's interesting about that is that people oftentimes in the pro-choice movement today will use the bodily autonomy argument, it's my body, neglecting or I would say ignoring the fallacious nature of the argument. It's bodily autonomy for every human, including the one inside of you.
Oh, absolutely.
And so
let's just bring that to another level.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, what if you're saying my choice is over this child's choice? Was that because why? You're bigger? Is it because you're more mature? What if you have twins? Are you outvoted?
Right.
Or if you have triplets or quadruplets or whatever,
Right.
are you outvoted? Are we going to go with democracy? Oh, we can't do that because truly, if we're going to do democracy, that one seed has as much right.
That's right.
As a parent does. So, you know, this to me, and so there's big money in abortion, always has been.
Right.
There's big money in people with Alzheimer's. There's big money with people that are in nursing homes that possibly wouldn't have to be there if we gave them the right medical treatment.
Right.
But you know what? There's big money in that. It's almost like, and I'm just throwing this out there because we're not going to go there. But it's almost like, do we know how to limit the amount of inmates in prisons? Well, sure we do. There's all kinds of things. But you know what? Prison is big industry. Bondage is big industry. Sin and the results of sin is a big industry. So this thing right now with taking away human life has got to be put in the truth of what it really is, in the sense of how it's talked about, how it's stated, how it's legislated, how it's looked on as a society. It's murder. It's just simply murder. And of course you get down to all these equations, if you will, or the what ifs. And you know what? If we simplify things and we just simply say there's life and there's murder, there's life and there's death. Those are easy. When is it life? Well, it's life at conception. And all of these other arguments that has happened on both sides, I think, could be limited to something that would be so much more simplistic, that if we just came at this from what God said, that at conception we have a life. That's the beginning.
Yeah,
we
and
go back,
biological science.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
When do we say that the world started? When do we say the earth was formed? When do we say, well, you know, if you're a Christian, you say, and God said, you know, in the beginning, and God just spoke it and it happened. If you're a Big Bang theorist and you're trying to get to that, well, then you say it happened then, but you do say that it happened in the Big Bang. I'm going to go back to the Big Bang. Guess what? Life started in the Big Bang, and that's when it started. And life is there. I did say that again. Here I'm on the air. At my church, when I preach, everybody's like, oh my God, he's going to preach. You know, because I say things like that. But the Big Bang theory, if you want to go with that, then guess what? Life started then. That's when the world was formed. If you want to go with the fact that God said it and it happened, and I believe that with all my heart. But the fact there was a word that was sown and the world began. When the seed is sown, life begins. Which one of us have the right to take somebody else's life? We don't.
Right.
And, you know, I think if we can get down to things that simple and we can see that legislated, how do you deal with a murderer? Well, I know our court systems here in the Commonwealth and in every state in the United States deals with murder courtrooms every day. It just happens, and so people are there. They're on trial. All of these, you know, we're not in a judicial system where you just simply say you did this, so that happens. It happens with a jury. It happens with a judge. Today, I don't have to be. Today, you don't have to be the judge and jury on a murder. But what we do know is there's consequences to murder.
That's right.
And that's why everyone don't murder. Yeah. You know, I hear today people, they argue over even tools, I call them tools, or utensils that kill people or murder, whether it's a knife or a bat or a gun or whatever it would be, or a car or a truck or whatever, however you kill somebody. This is not what really this argument is about. We're not, you know, I hear people, you know, the gun killed them or the knife, you know, they want to outlaw these things. And we're not getting into all that, but what I'm saying is what the real object of this thing, whether it's about guns should be outlawed, which, by the way, I don't believe that at all. I'm totally a Second Amendment guy.
Me too.
However, you think about that. We are so interested on how, not only that the person died, but how they died. Can I tell you something? Murder clinics, abortion clinics are the tool that is used to kill lives. It's got to be stopped.
Over 3,000 a day.
Every day, 3,000
every single day.
And you know what? And
There's
I'll
9/11 every day.
There's a 9/11 night. Yeah, every single day. And of course, being there when all that happened, I watched that happen, and I was the chaplain. I did last rites and blessings for everyone out of the towers, and I'm in the middle of that every day. I live that atrocity. And this, I guess to everybody, you know, wow, why'd you go there? Here we go. Okay. Something that I live every day of my life. The first body, I went a long time before I even talked about this, but the first body that was handed to me was a young lady who was drug out of the ash and the dust under tower, what would have been Tower 2. And she had jumped. And so she was just broken, just mush, you know. However, one side of her was covered and caked with ash, and the other side was not. And this young lady who was handed to me, which was a makeshift morgue at Brooks, at the corner there, is Brooks Brothers, which is a big department store. You can buy $500 shirts there. And but it's right there on Church and Liberty, of all places, the corner of Church and Liberty, and that's where we set the morgue up. And the first lady that was handed me in this makeshift morgue, we just had 50,000 body bags delivered. And this lady was handed to me by a police officer, and I cradled my arms, and they rolled this body over into my arms that's trying to fall apart. And as they're holding her, all I see is an ash pile over this body. When she rolled into my arms, I could see her face looked like, part of her face looked like she had just got out of the mirror in the bathroom, the vanity there, and makeup was all together. You could tell, in beautiful dress that was now all, you know, just dirty and tainted, but on one side it was fairly clean. And the thought was, oh my God, you know, I have daughters this age. Yeah. And those officers and firemen that were there, one lady police officer, a couple firemen, and they said, what do we do? And I answered the question knowing at that time no one knew what to do. This had just happened. Right. And I said, that will be all. They had given us gurneys and things, and we got all these body bags, and I lifted and put her over on a table. And the thing that I live with every day, and this is the realness of what I said this is going to, is through the through the aftermath in the months following. They would use tarps, and they would gather up pieces of bodies and parts and what was literally like mush. Most of that had been shoveled up. So in these tarps, maybe 10, 15, could be 20 people, pieces and parts of mush. And I believe there's things that, I do believe there are some things that are so horrid that humans should never see it. Yeah. And what was sometimes just floating around in the bottom of a tarp with big firemen carrying these tarps out of what was now known as Ground Zero, to me depicted, and this is what I thought about then and there, this is abortion. And you would see hands and fingers, sometimes breasts, parts of bodies, faces, in this muck, if you will, of human carnage. Mothers and fathers should never have to see that. I have children like that young girl. Yeah. But you know what? Maybe there's a mother right now listening. Maybe there's a father that knows there's a child coming. We think about the terrorist attack, and we think about how horrible bin Laden and all the terrorists that brought this about. Ever what your view is on it, ever how you view that. But would you do that to your child? Yeah. Life is the greatest gift
Life is the greatest gift I've ever been given. It's the greatest gift you've ever been given. But it didn't just start at your conception. It started at Jesus Christ. And he loved you first. Before the foundation of the world, he loved you. And he still loves you. He loved you when you were that little seed. Ever how that happened? Someone said it was an accidental pregnancy. There's no such thing.
That's right. No such thing.
Some people say, well, I was the victim of a rape and that child was never from God. There's no such thing. I think about so many people, but James Robinson wrote a book years ago, and it was about the fact that he was a throwaway kid and would have been aborted. And he became a man that helped and has helped and fed thousands and thousands and thousands of people in nations that have no food, had no clothes. He's helped clothe them. And he's ministered the word of God. And in my life, never told this, ever told this as it was being recorded. But in my life, I've been married now for 31 years. But there was a child that was conceived out of wedlock. And a father, a grandfather of what would be my child to be born, met me at a little restaurant for coffee and said, my daughter is too young, too talented, has got too much going for her to have a pregnancy. We need to have an abortion. My whole life was before me. All kind of things I was involved with. I was playing in a band, playing music and traveling all over the world. All kind of things I knew that I was involved. I had no clue all the things that were before me. And I knew for me to say, do not abort this child, would do things in my life, which I had no clue, you know. And you know what? It's the best thing in the world. I said, absolutely not. I'll pay every penny. I didn't have a way to pay every penny. You know, they wasn't wealthy. I'll take care of everything. I'll take care of child support. I'll pay for college. I'll do all those things. By the way, that I did. But you know what? There's no situation that you can be involved in today that gives you the right to take somebody's life. And why would you want to kill your own seed? We're living in the middle right now of a Holocaust that we called on ourselves.
And the work that you are involved in right now, this push forward to end, criminalize, abolish abortion of the state, is for these human beings, these innocent human beings that we ought to be protecting. I mean, you had front row seats to one of the greatest tragedies in the history of our nation. It's a tragedy. It's an awful thing that we say there's 3,000 lives lost, and it's the kind of thing that we fight wars about.
Oh, yeah.
And yet that's every
single day.
And
if there's anything that I can say, and I think, you know, I was groomed for that day. I had worked here in the city as I came to Louisville and pastored a church, and I saw things that weren't good. In my belief, it was not upright. And so I knew I was called to this city, and so I went to the street and started preaching. It wasn't long till I got involved in a group that was helping to preserve life and to save lives, and it took me into work with the Catholic Church. In 17 and a half years, I worked as a lay minister with church to church, from organizations and ministries that were Baptist, some of them Methodist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, and Catholic. And it was an ecumenical work, and I learned the Catholic prayers. Even though I was born and raised Protestant, I learned the Catholic prayers right here in this city. And never knew there was going to be a 9/11 where one day someone was going to look at me and said, will you open the morgue? And I had a collar on and the whole frock, if you will, of looking Catholic. And I said, I'm not Roman Catholic. And I'll never forget this government official there at the site at Ground Zero said, if you don't mind, Father, today you're both Roman Catholic and Irish. I said, I've got at least half of that down total. and I go in, but things happen for a reason. And I think that all the preparation of life was almost in some ways for that day.
Mm-hmm. And I believe
for now,
this day.
For this now. And I believe that with my whole heart.
Yeah.
So the things that I've experienced in life, and I would say that to anybody, you know, and I don't know if this is okay, because I feel this. I've had some bad days. Most of us have. Mm-hmm. And bad days make people do some crazy things. Bad days have made people take their lives. Bad days have made people take other people's lives. And what I want to say to you is this, you know, Jesus lived, we see 12 years of his life as a child. And I'm thankful we can see that. But my goodness, there's 18 years or so, we see nothing. All of a sudden, he shows up and he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
He just shows up, he's 30 years old. In 3 years, everything that me and you are doing, everything you and I are doing, everything that has happened in the world of Christianity happened because of 3 years. Mm-hmm. And I just really, this is my point. Who knows if your next 3 years, if you just live through today, will be something that will impact the world, impact the people that are around you, change their lives. So your bad day today has nothing to do with what your tomorrow can be. It can change in an instant. And I think people make decisions off of bad days. I know so many people that I've talked to that have woke up one morning with empty arms. One of my closest friends, who is a Emmy Award winner, Grammy Award, she's an incredible singer. She woke up aching. She woke up hurting because when she was younger, it just seemed like it was her career. It was, everything was down the tubes, everything was down the drain. And one day she found out she was expectant. And she went and had an abortion because she had a bad day. Now, all these years later, she had to one day say, that bad day made me make a decision to murder my child. Mm.
Yeah. There's a lot of intimate acquaintance you have with this whole issue.
Yeah.
That
we've got to stop it.
Yes.
You know, we've got to stop it. And we have a generation right now that is trying so hard, and sometimes in ways that are not necessarily the right way. You know, when struggles happen, civil rights struggles and all kind of things. I mean, there are things that are done that are right. There are things that are done sometimes that are wrong. And but we're so big about trying to rewrite. This generation is really wanting to redo and to rewrite wrongs. And what I would love for our society to know, and it's historic, it's there, you don't have to look hard, you don't have to research hard. Abortion was created by wicked, horrible, wicked politicians and people with power and influence to get rid of races, to get rid of unwanted ethnic groups in our country.
That's true. To
get rid of people that was considered the down and out. Mm-hmm. To get rid, if you will, almost like animals, to control groups of humanity, that they would never find a place of dominance or a place of power. And so they tried to rid our nation of by killing off people. And they thought that smart people would never have abortions because they would know better, so it would never affect the elite. Oh, wow. But it would dispose of the poor. Right. And just dispose of those that were of racial backgrounds that our elitist society didn't want to be here. This is the biggest biggest issue today of why infants' lives matter.
There you go. You know, you are working towards something that isn't regulating the abortion industry, but actually abolishing.
Yes.
Ending, criminalizing abortion on purely legal, constitutional, just grounds. It's a human being. That's a fact from conception. All human life matters, whether it's black, white, whatever color, whatever size, whatever gender. All human life matters, and we have to protect it by law.
Yes.
And so you're being very consistent with the Constitution, with the laws of Kentucky, with the law of God, and you're asking the people of Kentucky to partner with you, essentially, to speak consistently on this issue for the unborn. And we want to support you, and we want the world to support you, and we've got your back. And so one of the ways people can get a hold of you is, I'll just go ahead and read here, is We Are Kentucky 2018 at yahoo.com, paypal.com, and then Heart of Fire at integrity.com is where people can...
The website.
Is the website. People can get a hold of you. Okay, so we talked about this in the live stream a bit, but you've got, we'll finish up here, you are generating all this based upon principles of law, principles of constitution, principles of states' rights. So when you look at two issues, and one's already being done across the country, the legalization of marijuana, states are saying to the federal government, we reject your decree, and we're going to govern ourselves here. You're saying the same thing about the abortion issue.
Absolutely.
We reject your very fallacious court opinion.
Absolutely.
Courts don't make laws anyways. Our Constitution forbids such a thing.
Absolutely.
And so the states have the right to say to the federal government in issues like this, we reject your authority and your decree.
Right.
And so is it possible for the people of Kentucky to abolish abortion, to end it?
Absolutely it is. It comes down to several things. One is we have state rights. And we as a state can say, in our state, we refuse this law, it's unconstitutional.
Right.
Then we have the right, if it were to come into a lawsuit, if you will, to go back again and say the Constitution trumps any federal laws that have been passed.
Right.
Not only can we do that, but any state in the United States, the way the law reads, could do that. And in fact, should have already done that.
That's right.
All it's going to take is one state to break free and win this. And it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen because, here's why it's going to happen. It's going to happen because there's a you. And there's a me, and there's people like you that are people like me and you that said only if I could do something I would. Oh my gosh. You know what? Social media has become the Tonight Show that everyone directs individually. It has become the midday talk show that everyone has their own Oprah, if you use it.
Yeah.
So we have the ability that we have never had to stop all the things that have seemingly been forever wrong.
Right.
We have that. We have that. The season's now. The time is now. And you know what? We have I feel a generation that they're so close to being what I call the revolutionaries. They are just like the revolutionaries. They are the Minutemen. They are those people that are statesmen waiting to happen.
Yep.
And all you have to do, and all I have to do is stand up and really do what we're called to do.
That's right.
And righteousness can prevail.
That's right.
Righteousness can prevail. And you know, when I even say that, I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that tugging on my heart.
Yeah.
You know, I said this to someone the other day, and if you're hearing this and you've never had anyone speak to you this way, you need to grab this. I have a lot of times right now in my life, and I had it happen as a pastor and a minister. But I have a lot of times in my life now where I start hearing these words about abolishing abortion. There's nothing that we can do right now that'd be greater than that, because it is truly a crime against the totally innocent.
That's right.
But I have these times now where I hear these words in my head. So it says, yeah, you're hearing voices. I promise you I am. I hear this word from God, or I hear something. And some of you may not You may not have the ability to define that yet, don't realize that's what it is. If it's a good word and a righteous word, that's a word from God. And I almost feel like this something has inhabited my mind and my body that has taken control of me. What I'm doing is really not me. And the mission I'm on is really not me. It's just what has come and taken over my being to do the right thing. And then when I got to thinking about that, that's why every one of us were created. And that's why it is so important for that little infant. Who is that child? Mm-hmm. Wow. Who is that child you're carrying? You know, when you're pregnant, someone's pregnant, they're a mother or they're a father, and there's a baby in the womb of that woman. Oh my God, who is that? It's amazing.
That's powerful. Yeah. Well, we're with you. We've got your back. We're supporting you. And I just want to say to you as a brother, you are being faithful. Stand firm, because the onslaught that you know is coming your way, yeah. The onslaught that's coming your way of spiritual attacks and just venom and arrows, we want you to know that there is a mass of Christians across this nation that are completely, not kind of, they are completely behind you. And so we want to just encourage you to do the right thing before God.
Yes.
And He will bless you for that. And what you're doing right now, you are standing and interposing between evil and these innocent image bearers of God.
Yes.
And so I just want to encourage you as your brother to stand firm, and you will be rewarded. He will never forget your labor, brother. Okay?
Thank you so
much. All right, brother. God bless you.
Appreciate it.
And we're 100% behind you. You've got all of us, okay?
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Praise
Thank you.
God. Thank you. Amazing. That was such a blessing. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.